those garden shears snipped with unsettling precision. "Just keeping things tidy," Martha murmured, never meeting his eyes, but David saw the flash of cold steel, the practiced flick of her wrist. What was a simple homemaker hiding behind prize-winning, roses? David adjusted the brim of his worn baseball cap, pretending to inspect a stubborn weed near the shared fence line. Retirement was supposed to be slow, peaceful. After 30 years chasing shadows and reading tells on hardened criminals for the Chicago PD, suburban tranquility felt thin, like a cheap veneer over something unfinished. Maple Creek was nice. Enough. Manicured lawns, whispering sprinklers, neighbors who waved politely but kept their distance. Except for Martha Jenkins next door. Martha, the neighborhood's resident, simple woman, widowed years ago, lived alone in the neat little bungalow adjacent to David's modest ranch house. Everyone liked Martha, always ready with a baked good, a sympathetic ear, or meticulously grown vegetables from her impressive garden. Her routine was clockwork, morning gardening precisely at 7 a.m., midday errands in her old reliable sedan, evenings spent quietly indoors, lights off by 9 p.m. sharp. Predictable. Orderly. Too orderly, David thought, the old cop instincts stirring uncomfortably. It wasn't one big thing. It was 100 tiny details that didn't quite add up, inconsistencies nagging at the edges of his perception, like her hands. Always immaculate when she offered him cookies over the fence, yet sometimes glimpsed through her kitchen window, or when she reached quickly for a dropped trowel, he saw faint, silvery lines across her knuckles. Old scars. Faded. But definitely there. Not the kind you got from pruning roses. More like the kind you got from impact. Then there was her knowledge. She spoke mostly of recipes and weather patterns, but occasionally a comment would slip out. A remark about geopolitical tensions displaying surprising insight. An offhand analysis of a local burglary that sounded eerily like professional profiling. Once, discussing a news report about a bank robbery, she'd casually mentioned the specific type of vault-locking mechanism likely used, then quickly changed the subject, flustered, when David raised an eyebrow. Simple women didn't usually know the engineering specs of bank vaults. Her trash disposal was another oddity. David, habitually observant, noticed she never put sensitive mail directly in the bin, not even junk mail with her name visible. Shredded. Always shredded, meticulously. Overkill for catalogs and credit card offers. And her car. That old sedan. Reliable, yes, but David, who still mentally ran plates out of habit, noted it had changed license plates 3 times in the 2 years he'd lived there, each time followed by a brief trip to visit distant cousins she'd vaguely mentioned. When she returned, new plates. Odd. Very odd. He started watching more closely, not out of malice, but ingrained habit. The boredom of retirement gnawed at him, and Martha was the most interesting puzzle Maple Creek had to offer. He'd time his own yard work to coincide with hers, walk his aging beagle Buster along the perimeter of her property, make small talk over the fence, probing gently, listening more to the pauses and deflections than the actual words. Martha remained pleasant, guardedly friendly. Her eyes, a pale, washed-out blue, rarely met his directly for more than a fleeting second. They always seemed to be scanning, assessing, even during casual conversation, like she was constantly monitoring her surroundings. One Saturday morning, David was cleaning his gutters when he saw Martha struggling with a heavy bag of fertilizer near her garage. He hopped down from the ladder, offering help. As he hefted the bag, his hand brushed against hers. She flinched, a tiny, almost imperceptible reaction, but lightning fast, not a startle, a trained recoil, like someone anticipating a threat. He pretended not to notice, carrying the bag into her spotless garage. His eyes swept the space automatically. Everything, neat. Tools hung on pegboards, outlines drawn around them. Except for one corner. Partially obscured by a tarp, He glimpsed a heavy-duty steel workbench, not the kind for potting plants, more suited for mechanics or maybe metalwork. He saw clamps, vices, tools he didn't immediately recognize but felt industrial, out of place in Martha's simple life. "Thanks, David," she said, her voice a little tight, subtly ushering him out. "Don't know what I'd do without good neighbors." Her smile seemed pasted on. He went back to his gutters. The image of that workbench burned into his mind. The puzzle. Pieces weren't fitting the picture of Martha Jenkins, the quiet widow. They were hinting at someone else entirely. Who was she? What was she hiding behind the facade of suburban normalcy? The need to know became a familiar itch, the kind that wouldn't let him rest until he had answers. He decided to run her name. Unofficially, of course. He still had a contact, Frank, a data analyst back at the department, owed him a favor or two. David called him, keeping it casual. Just curious about a neighbor, maybe some unpaid parking tickets, anything public record. Frank grumbled good-naturedly, but agreed. A few hours later, Frank called back. His voice was different, subdued. "David, the name Martha Jenkins, age 67, resident of Maple Creek. She checks out, clean record, voter registration, property taxes paid, born in Peoria." "Nothing? Squeaky clean." David felt a flicker of disappointment. Maybe he was just bored, seeing shadows. "But," Frank continued, his voice dropping lower, "something's weird. When I ran her social security number through the deeper federal databases, it flags an anomaly, a restricted access marker. Very unusual for a civilian with no government or military history. Usually reserved for protected witnesses or classified identities. I can't see specifics. It's locked down tight. Higher clearance needed. Way higher. A protected witness? A classified identity?" David's heart hammered against his ribs. This was it. The midpoint twist. Martha wasn't just hiding a few odd skills or a peculiar past. She was officially hidden, scrubbed clean, living under some form of protection or perhaps concealment. The simple woman persona wasn't just a personality quirk. It was likely a carefully constructed cover identity. The stakes just skyrocketed. This wasn't idle curiosity anymore. This could be dangerous. Who was she hiding from? Or what? His perspective shifted instantly. Every inconsistency, every odd detail, now seemed less like an eccentricity and more like a potential clue to her real identity, her hidden past. The scars, the specialized knowledge, the workbench, the flinch reflex, the evasive eyes. It all pointed to someone trained, someone experienced in things far removed from baking pies and planting petunias. David needed to be careful. If she was under protection, drawing attention to her could put her and potentially him at risk. But the cop in him couldn't let it go. The mystery deepened. He had to know the truth. He started researching old cases online, focusing on disappearances, witness protection programs, even cold cases involving skilled female operatives or criminals from decades past. He searched for mentions of Peoria, her supposed birthplace, cross-referencing with unsolved crimes or missing persons around the time Martha Jenkins would have been a young woman. Hours bled into days. He sifted through archives, news databases, obscure forums. Nothing solid emerged. Her cover was good. Very good. He focused back on direct observation, looking for tells, slips in her carefully maintained facade. He noticed her heightened awareness during thunderstorms, how she seemed almost hypervigilant, scanning the sky not with fear, but calculation. He saw her effortlessly parallel park her old sedan in a ridiculously tight spot downtown, a maneuver requiring spatial judgment and precision far exceeding the average driver. Small things, but they formed a pattern of competence hidden beneath deliberate simplicity. What event could possibly require someone to live like this, erased and rebuilt, for decades. One evening, while sorting through old boxes, in his own garage, David found his service pistol, locked securely in its case. He hadn't held it in years. Looking at it now, he felt a cold premonition. He checked the ammunition, loaded the clip. He didn't anticipate needing it, but the instincts honed over 30 years screamed at him not to be unprepared. The answer came unexpectedly, not from digital archives or databases, but from the earth itself. Martha was installing a new bird bath in her prize-winning rose garden. David watched from his kitchen window as she dug the hole. She moved efficiently, economically, disturbing the soil minimally. But as she levered out a larger rock, something small and metallic dislodged. With it, glinting in the late afternoon sun, Martha quickly scooped it up, her back to David, but not before he saw it clearly. A shell casing. Old, tarnished brass. Maybe .38 caliber? Not the kind of thing you typically found buried amongst rose bushes in quiet suburbia. Martha glanced around furtively, then slipped the casing into her apron pocket, patting the soil smooth over the spot with excessive care. A buried shell casing. In her garden. Why? Was it dropped accidentally long ago? Or placed there deliberately? A relic of the past she couldn't quite discard? David felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. The garden, her sanctuary, her symbol of simple peace, might be guarding a darker secret. Maybe even a literal grave. The thought was horrifying. He had to know. Waiting until well after midnight, when Martha's house was dark and silent, David slipped out. He used a small trowel, moving carefully, quietly, in the exact spot where she'd found the casing. The soil was soft, recently disturbed. He dug shallowly, feeling for anything solid. His trowel struck something hard just a few inches down. Not a rock. Metal. He carefully brushed the dirt away. It was a small, rust-pitted metal box. Locked. He worked the simple latch with a piece of wire from his pocket. Old habits died hard. Inside, nestled on faded velvet lining, wasn't a weapon or jewels. It was a collection of photographs and a single folded document. The photos showed a much younger Martha, her hair dark, her eyes fiercely intelligent, not washed-out blue. She wore fatigues in some pictures, standing beside military vehicles. In others, she was in formal attire, shaking hands with foreign dignitaries David vaguely recognized from old newsreels. The document was yellowed, brittle, a heavily redacted government commendation for exceptional service rendered under extreme duress, Project Nightingale, dates blacked out, location classified, details obscured. But the name wasn't Martha Jenkins. It was Dr. Eleanor Vance, a name David did recognize once he saw it. Dr. Vance, a brilliant biochemist working on controversial government research back in the late 70s. She disappeared abruptly after a catastrophic lab explosion killed several colleagues and destroyed years of sensitive work. Officially listed among the dead. Unofficially, rumors had circulated for years. Whispers of espionage, sabotage, a scientist forced to go deep undercover, possibly entering an early, undocumented version of witness protection after uncovering a dangerous conspiracy within her own agency. Martha Jenkins wasn't a simple woman. She was Dr. Eleanor Vance, a ghost living in plain sight. Her simple life, a meticulously crafted fortress against a past that refused to stay buried. The roses weren't just flowers. They were sentinels guarding the secrets of a brilliant, possibly dangerous woman who had traded one life for another, leaving only buried shell casings and redacted commendations as proof she ever existed. When the quiet life is an elaborate lie, how far would someone go to protect their hidden past? And what buried truths lie waiting in the most ordinary places? Drop your theory in the comments and subscribe for more stories where secrets bloom in plain sight.